Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Disney Vacation Club discussion. I wanted to respond to a comment that I got that I've been thinking about for like the past week. So I thought we could do that today while we go for a nice walk. I'm actually on the path between Hollywood Studios and EPCOT now, so wander with me and let's chat. Now, like I said, this conversation today is brought to you by a comment that I got from one of you. We were going back and forth one morning while I was enjoying my coffee, getting my day started. Nice little conversation. And as we were wrapping up that conversation, this person said, would love a vid on your opinion of the health of DVC given the lack of right of first refusal. Prices are dropping like a rock and Disney is only buying back some Grand Floridian contracts. And like I said, this got me thinking. Been thinking a lot, doing a little bit of research just to double check some things. Before we get into that though, so I'm not going to go into all of the nuts and bolts about DVC. We've had so many DVC conversations already up until this point, so if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, I recommend that you check some of our other Disney Vacation Club discussions out just so you get a sense of what DVC is, but I do want to go into right of first refusal. Now, in some of our past discussions, when we've talked specifically about buying a Disney Vacation Club contract resale, I've mentioned something called the right of first refusal. Now, there's probably a bunch of legalese that I could use in order to explain this. I'm not going to get that into it today. You know, we're not getting way into the weeds, but it essentially means that Disney Vacation Club has first dibs on contracts that are being sold. So once all of the decisions have been made, you've decided you're going to purchase a contract, or someone has decided they're going to purchase your contract, Disney Vacation Club then has, I think it's 30 days to decide if they're going to purchase the contract. So this can be great for the people selling because they can sell their contract regardless. For the people buying, it means that Disney or Disney Vacation Club can buy it out from under you. So it's a consideration that you need to keep in mind, especially if you find contracts at a really great price. But here's the thing, and ultimately where this question comes from. DVC hasn't been exercising their right of first refusal recently in the same way that they used to before. In fact, when I researched, I think I looked at the information for January and they had only purchased back one contract, and that was the Grand Floridian contract. You know, the one that was mentioned in the comment that we're talking about today. And with that being the case, I think some people are wondering what the deal is with the DVC. Like, has anyone checked in on them? Are they good? And that's, like I said, what I've been thinking about as well over the past week, just kind of organizing my thoughts and really looking back at the past few years and some of the changes that have been made. And that's what most of today's conversation is going to be based on, with a heaping side of opinion, because of course we're talking opinions here. But look, I want to be real with you. I want to be very transparent. I have experience as a Disney Vacation Club member, but I don't have a wealth of knowledge in every single corner of Disney Vacation Club as a company. So I don't want to give you the impression that I'm like spending my days flipping through spreadsheets to look at numbers when it comes to resale specifically. If you're looking for that type of information or an opinion based on that type of information, I'm not the person for it, and I honestly don't know who to point you in the direction of to get that opinion. However, my opinion is based on just my knowledge and experience as a Disney Vacation Club member, as well as my knowledge of the travel space, because that's where I focus most of my time anyway. And I'm bound to say something that isn't quite right. I know you'll correct me in the comments, so it's all good. Just, you know, keep that in mind. So when it comes to Disney not purchasing back many contracts, you know, not exercising their right of first refusal, I have to be completely honest with you, I'm not very surprised by that. And the reason I'm not really surprised is because we're in kind of a tough moment. Also, just as a side note, we've got construction happening all over the place and then maintenance happening elsewhere, so it's not going to be the most relaxing of environments today. Apologize for that, but you know, take it up with the powers that be. You know, I know there are a lot of people out there who are so done with hearing about the impact that 2020 has had just on everything. But unfortunately, especially when we talk about things related to travel, for example, there's really no way around the fact that it had a major impact and a lot of companies have struggled as a result. And I think that it's not as simple to say that it was just a quick struggle. It's something that is going to take years and years to recover from. There are some people out there who think that we've like already recovered. Not quite. You can see this especially in just the way that people travel and the habits. We haven't really found that rhythm again. I talked about this when we were discussing like finding the best time to travel to Walt Disney World, but this also could be said for any destination. It's not the same as it used to be, and we're still trying to figure that out. And it's not just us, the people who are traveling or the people who are talking about travel, but it's also the companies themselves, and DVC is no exception here. And of course, everyone has their own opinions, and you'll hear a lot of people saying like, Disney's making enough money to do X, Y, and Z, and I say that myself, and there are definitely times where I think that that is true, but I also think that there are times where we have to set our perspective aside and look at this through the lens of a business owner. And when things are unpredictable, that's not good for business, especially when we're talking about travel. And I think that that's part of what's playing a role in how Disney is doing things right now. And I don't just mean for DVC, I mean how Disney is doing things in general. But of course, DVC is what we're talking about today. And yes, you can absolutely present the counter argument that they're building properties and that means that they obviously have money coming in. But the way that business works, no matter what business we're talking about, 90% of the time, is that you have to spend money to make money. And so you'll often put yourself in a position that you don't necessarily want to be in with the hopes that that will get you not only out of that position, but put you in a better position. So I think that we could probably guesstimate that that's some of what's happening here as well. Again, I haven't been flipping through spreadsheets, I haven't been looking at numbers, but I'm just talking about my experience and my thoughts on this. Like I always say, you're welcome to share yours in a comment down below. It's what's on my mind. And I actually kind of think that the fact that there are new properties coming up contributes to Disney's lack of interest in exercising their right of first refusal. Because I would imagine that rather than purchasing old contracts back so that members can buy those, they want to push people to buying the new properties so that that can pay off those new properties. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, that would be my best guess as to why Disney isn't really incentivized to buy those contracts back, at least at the most basic level. But I think there's more to it. I mean, of course there is. And part of that, at least, again, my opinion, is the market for resale has made it less desirable for Disney to buy as well. So one thing that I've noticed in the past, especially among companies that are selling DVC points, is that they seem to be giving the sellers some info as to where they should price their DVC contracts. Of course they do, right? Like, that only makes sense. And when this happens, that contracts are priced in a way that are going to give sellers the most bang for their buck, I think that Disney's less likely to be able to make a lowball offer and get those points back so that they can resell them at a higher profit. And of course, that's not a good move, right? Like, if you know that you're going to be buying those points for 50% of what they're worth and you're only going to make 50% on them, it isn't that good of a deal, at least not on the scale of a large business, though it might be a great deal for someone like you who's buying resale. You know what I mean? So those are just my initial thoughts when it comes to, I suppose you could say, the financial aspects of it, although all of this is directly related to finances, right? But I do think there are a few other things to consider that aren't necessarily as directly related to money. And those are the changes that are being made to the way that DVC functions. And this has been something that has been in the works since, well, at least 2019, but probably even before that. Now in 2019 is when we saw our first contract go on sale with resale restrictions. And these resale restrictions, at least in my opinion, was the beginning of a shift with DVC. It wasn't the first shift. Obviously, they'd made many changes in the past, but the beginning of the most current shift in DVC towards solving some of the problems that longtime members of DVC have been having. And some of those challenges include not being able to use your points when you want to or when you're capable of. Because look, not everyone can just book whenever. They need to stick to a schedule, you know, with all those pesky things like work and school. And while there are a few different things that contribute to this problem, one of those things, at least in my opinion and that of other DVC members, is that there are a lot of people who purchase resale elsewhere with no intention of ever staying there. So for example, someone will buy at Saratoga Springs with the intention of staying exclusively at Beach Club. It happens a lot, and it makes it more difficult to get into Beach Club, even all things considered. And I know there are a lot of you who are going to push back on this, and you're going to say, well, if you book within your 11-month window, not always. Not always. There are other things at play here that still make it difficult for DVC members to book at their home resort. I'm one of them. Plenty of you have shared your experiences with that as well. And look, I think that these adjustments, this is a little bit of a side note here, I think these adjustments are a good thing. I think that the resale restrictions are going to have an overall positive impact on the experience that DVC members have, but it's going to take time, like years. And I think the only thing that's going to push that along is if DVC leans into selling contracts with those resale restrictions. And if you think about it, that's just another thing that's going to incentivize them against exercising that right of first refusal and purchasing back those points so that they can resell them. So to me, at very least, it makes sense for DVC to not exercise that right of first refusal, leave those contracts to the people who are selling them and to whoever is buying them, and then focus their energy on those new properties, maybe even only buying back contracts in order to meet the demands of specific existing members. Like, I wonder if I reached out to DVC and was like, I really want a contract here, if they would go through the process of trying to find one that they could exercise their right of first refusal on and then sell to me at full price. I don't know how good of an option that would be for them, that is. It wouldn't necessarily be the best option for me, but I do think that it would be an available option. Maybe a route that they would consider going. Who knows? Now, with all that being said, my opinions when it comes to the health of DVC is that they're just chugging. I think that DVC as a company is just doing what they gotta do to function the best way that they can right now, given the circumstances. And again, those circumstances aren't just things that they may have done to themselves, but also things that are happening throughout the travel space that are impacting them as well. You know, like if airline companies are struggling and that's resulting in changes to the way that people are traveling, that's going to have a direct impact on the way that DVC operates. And the same could be said for pretty much anything else, you know, not just DVC, but all over. And you know, that's one of the things I don't think enough people take into consideration, especially when having conversations about stuff like this, is that while the decisions that a company makes is going to directly impact them, they're often making decisions based on what else is happening. There are outside influences and outside factors that are impacting the way that they do things, and they gotta bob and weave just like the rest of us. And so sometimes they make the wrong call, or someone else makes a call that impacts them in a way that they didn't anticipate. And I think that that's probably what's happening not only with DVC and with Disney, but with so much right now in the travel industry. And so, at least in my opinion, I don't really read too much into it. For me, it doesn't really speak to the health of the company as much as it speaks to what they're just currently doing and what they're trying to accomplish. Or I suppose I should say that I don't think that their choice to not buy back contracts with the right of first refusal is an indicator that the company is failing. I think that they're probably struggling like so many other things, but it's just doing the do, as they say. But I would love to hear what your thoughts are. Share them in a comment down below. I could be completely off target here, and that's fine. These are just my opinions, but I'd love to know what you have to say. Do you think that their choice to not buy back more contracts is an indicator that something's not right or that there's a problem? Tell me about it in a comment down below. Also, while you're there, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already. There are so many more Disney Vacation Club related conversations that we need to have, and they're on the way. So you don't want to miss them. Of course, you don't want to miss our other adventures either. So make sure you don't. Subscribe. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm off, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye guys.